10 years of marriage, and I thought I'd earned my place in their family. But one morning, scrolling through Instagram in my Puerto Vallarta villa, I saw a post celebrating their yacht trip. Everyone laughing, clinking glasses, everyone but me. Then my phone buzzed with a message not meant for my eyes, my name, crossed out, replaced by a stranger's. My sister-in-law's voice laughed, saying the vibe would be lighter without me. Rage burned through me. How could they erase me from a legacy I built? Stay with me to see how I turned their betrayal into my triumph. Before starting this story, if you are listening from USA, please leave a comment with number 9, and if you are from another country, please leave the name of your lovely country. Don't forget to like the video and subscribe to the channel to listen to more stories. The morning sun spilled through the tall windows of our conscious China's villa, casting golden streaks across the terracotta tiles. I stood in the kitchen, cradling a chipped Talavera mug filled with café de olla, its cinnamon warmth curling into the air. The Pacific Ocean glittered beyond the glass, a restless mirror to the unease I hadn't yet named. It was the first day of April, a Monday, and Puerto Vallarta hummed with the quiet promise of spring. Diego, my husband, had left early for a meeting, his cologne lingering alongside a half-eaten mango on the counter. I sipped my coffee, the mug's familiar weight grounding me as I scrolled through my phone, a reflex more than a purpose. My thumb paused over an Instagram post from Sophia, my niece. A boomerang clip looped endlessly, champagne flutes clinking, laughter, the sleek outline of La Sirena, our family's yacht, swaying gently in Marina Vallarta. The caption read, "Family escape tradition begins, ready to sail." My chest tightened. The annual Salazar yacht trip, a ritual I'd joined only twice in 10 years of marriage, each time a guest in their world, never family. I tapped through the stories. There was Carmen, my mother-in-law, holding a margarita, Adriana, my sister-in-law, her smile sharp as obsidian, Diego's cousins, their spouses, even Sophia's new boyfriend, everyone but me. I set the mug down, my pulse a dull thud in my ears. The kitchen felt smaller, the air heavier. I checked my email, hoping for an invitation lost in the clutter. Nothing. No group chat. No missed calls. No trace of my name in their plans. I wasn't surprised. Not truly. But the sting was raw, like salt on a wound I'd ignored too long. For years. I'd sat at their tables, smiled through their slights, convinced myself their exclusions were oversights. The time I wasn't invited to Carmen's 60th birthday, the Christmas dinner where my place card was missing, each moment a pinprick, dismissed until they formed a wound. My phone buzzed, snapping me back, a message from Adriana, not meant for me. A screenshot of a group text, the yacht's cabin assignments neatly typed. My name, Isabel Morales, was crossed out in red. Next to it, a note confirmed for Marisol. Marisol, Adriana's salsa instructor, who once mistook me for Diego's secretary. Below, a voice note, Adriana's laugh, bright and cruel, spilled through the speaker. Good. The vibe on board will be so much lighter this year. Lighter. The word sliced through me, sharp and deliberate. I gripped the counter, my knuckles pale against the dark granite. Rage simmered beneath my skin, a slow burn I hadn't allowed myself to feel in years. I forced a breath, steadying my hands. The ocean outside shimmered, indifferent. I opened my email again, searching for answers. There it was, buried in my inbox, a cancellation confirmation from the yacht charter company, dated 3 days ago, requested by Adriana Velasco. My place hadn't been forgotten, it had been erased. The betrayal wasn't new, but its brazenness was. I printed the email, the printer's hum a quiet ally in the silent house. The paper felt heavy, a tangible proof of their deceit. I slid it into a folder, my movements precise, as if handling evidence in a trial I wasn't ready to name. I stood by the window, staring at the waves. The family I'd married into had never welcomed me. Not truly. Adriana's cold smiles, Carmen's polite distance, the way conversations hushed when I entered a room. I'd built my life alongside Diego. poured my heart into a business that funded their precious La Sirena. Yet I was an outsider in their legacy. The anger flared hotter now, a fire I couldn't douse. They thought they could write me out, replace me with a stranger who danced to their tune. My jaw clenched, the taste of coffee bitter on my tongue. I wasn't naive. I'd known Adriana's disdain for me, her need to control the Salazar narrative. But this was different. This was a declaration, a line drawn in the sand. I wanted to scream, to call Diego, to demand answers. Instead, I picked up my mug, the crack near the handle a reminder of things I'd let slide too long. I wouldn't call, I wouldn't beg, I'd watch, wait, and let the truth sharpen my resolve. They'd underestimated me, but I'd built more than they knew, and soon they'd see it. The afternoon sun hung low over Puerto Vallarta, painting the conscious China's villa in hues of amber and rust. I stood by the open doors of the patio, the sea breeze carrying the faint tang of salt and hibiscus. It was still the first day of April, hours after discovering Adriana's betrayal, and the sting of her words' lighter vibe burned like a fresh wound. My hands trembled as I set down my phone, the screenshot of her message seared into my mind. I couldn't sit still. I paced the terracotta tiles, each step fueling a rage I'd buried for too long. The family I'd married into had never seen me, not truly, and now they'd declared it openly. I wouldn't let this pass. I sank into the wicker chair by the dining table, its cushions worn from years of quiet evenings. My thoughts drifted to the past, to the moments I'd let slide, each one a brick in the wall of their exclusion. 8 years ago, at Sophia's quinceañera, I'd arrived with a hand-embroidered shawl, a gift I'd chosen with care. Adriana had barely glanced at it, ushering me to a table far from the family, next to strangers who asked if I was the caterer. I'd laughed it off, but the humiliation lingered. Then there was the Año Nuevo feast 3 years back, where my place was set at the children's table, my name scrawled in haste on a napkin while Adriana sat at the head, radiant in her velvet dress. Even on La Sirena, during my first trip 5 years ago, she'd introduced me as Diego's wife, a guest in their legacy, not a part of it. Each slight had felt small, a misunderstanding I could forgive, but together they formed a truth I could no longer deny. I was invisible to them. The anger surged, hot and sharp, like a blade forged in silence. I'd built a business from nothing, my late nights funding their precious yacht, yet they treated me like an outsider. Diego should have seen it. He should have spoken up. I grabbed my phone and called him, my heart pounding. He answered on the third ring, his voice distracted, papers rustling in the background. Isabel. I'm in a meeting. Everything okay? I swallowed the urge to scream. Did you know about the yacht trip I asked? My tone clipped. A pause. Too long. Yeah, Mom mentioned it. They're still sorting the details. My grip tightened. Am I in those details? Diego. Another pause. Of course you are. Why wouldn't you be? His casual dismissal cut deeper than Adriana's cruelty. Check with Adriana, I said, my voice cold. She seems to have other plans. I hung up before he could respond, my chest heaving. His indifference was a betrayal of its own, a silent agreement with their erasure of me. I crossed to the wooden desk in the corner, its surface cluttered with bills and old photos. I pulled out my journal, the leather cover soft under my fingers. I wrote in steady ink, observe, strike later. The words anchored me, a vow to myself. I wouldn't beg for a place among them. I'd claim what was mine. I left the villa, the late afternoon heat wrapping around me as I drove to Mercado Municipal. The market buzzed with vendors calling out prices for mangoes and tamales, their voices a chaotic symphony. I slipped into a quiet stall selling handmade goods, my eyes scanning for a safe place to think. There, among woven baskets, I found a locked box where I'd stored papers years ago. Inside were the ownership documents for La Sirena, my signature bold on the first page, alongside bank receipts proving I'd paid for it alone. My business, my sweat, my triumph not theirs. The papers trembled in my hands, a shield against their lies. As dusk settled over Puerto Vallarta, I returned home, the folder clutched tight. The ocean murmured beyond the patio, its rhythm steady, unyielding. I stood in the doorway, the weight of 10 years pressing against me. Adriana thought she could erase me, but she'd miscalculated. Diego's silence hurt more, a crack in the foundation of our marriage. But I wouldn't crumble. I'd built too much to let them tear it down. My anger wasn't just fire, now it was purpose. They'd see who I was, not as a guest, but as the woman who held the keys to their legacy. I'd make sure of it. The late afternoon light filtered through the palm trees along Puerto Vallarta's malecón, casting dappled shadows on the cobblestone path. It was the second day of April, a Tuesday, and the ocean breeze did little to cool the turmoil churning inside me. I walked alone, my sandals tapping against the stone, the weight of yesterday's discoveries pressing heavy on my chest. Adriana's betrayal, Diego's indifference, the documents proving my ownership of La Serena, they should have fueled my resolve. Yet doubt crept in, cold and insidious, whispering fears I hadn't dared to face. What if confronting the Salazars shattered my marriage? Could I risk losing Diego, the man I'd built a life with, for the sake of pride? I paused by a bronze sculpture, its weathered curves glinting in the sun. My phone buzzed, pulling me from my thoughts. A message from Lucia Navarro, a journalist friend whose sharp wit I'd always admired. Attached was a screenshot the finalized guest list for La Serena, emailed from Adriana's account. My name was gone, replaced by Marisol, her salsa instructor. Lucia's text was blunt. They think you'll stay quiet. Prove them wrong. Her words stung, a spark igniting the anger I'd let flicker. I stared at the screen, my jaw tight. Lucia saw what I'd been too afraid to admit. Silence was surrender. Her message wasn't just evidence. It was a challenge, daring me to fight. I drove to Zona Romantica, the city's vibrant heart, where Mateo Rivera's law office sat above a cafe selling churros. The narrow staircase creaked under my steps, leading to a small room with windows overlooking the cobblestone streets. Mateo, a lawyer I'd trusted for years, greeted me with a nod, his desk cluttered with files. "Isabel, what brings you here?" he asked, his voice calm but curious. I handed him the folder, my hand steady despite the storm within. "I need you to confirm something," I said, my tone firm. "Who owns La Serena?" He scanned the documents my signature, the bank receipts his brow furrowing. After a moment, he looked up. "You're the primary owner. Isabel, sole investor. Legal title holder? No question." His words landed like a lifeline, solid and unyielding. "They can't change that," he added. "Not without your consent." Relief washed over me, but it was fleeting. Doubt lingered, a shadow I couldn't shake. What if I confront them, I asked, my voice quieter now. What if it costs me everything? Mateo leaned back, his gaze steady. "You've already paid for that yacht with your work, your time. Don't let them steal your truth, too." His words echoed Lucia's, a chorus urging me forward. I nodded, the decision crystallizing. I wouldn't let fear chain me to silence. I'd face them, not for revenge, but for the woman I'd fought to become. By dawn on Wednesday, the 3rd day of April, I stood on my villa's patio, the Pacific stretching endless before me. The rage that had simmered now burned bright, tempered by purpose. Lucia's screenshot and Mateo's confirmation were my armor, proof that I wasn't the outsider they'd painted me to be. I booked a car to Marina Vallarta, my heart steady, my mind clear. The Salazars thought they could erase me, but I'd walk onto La Serena and claim my place. Adriana's lies would unravel, and I'd be there to watch. For the first time in years, I felt not just anger, but power, the kind that comes from knowing your worth. The morning sun blazed over Marina Vallarta, its rays dancing on the turquoise waters of Puerto Vallarta's bay. It was the 3rd day of May, a Friday, and the air carried the sharp scent of salt and diesel. I stepped out of the car, my navy linen dress crisp against my skin, the folder of documents tucked under my arm like a shield. La Sirena loomed ahead, its sleek white hull adorned with intricate Talavera-inspired tiles, a monument to my labor now claimed by the Salazars. My heart thundered, not with fear, but with a fury honed over years of silence. Today, I'd shatter their illusion of control. I crossed the dock, my heels clicking on the wooden planks, each step a defiance. Adriana stood at the boarding gate, her silk scarf fluttering, her laughter ringing as she greeted a guest. Her eyes met mine, and her smile froze, her champagne flute halting mid-air. For a fleeting moment, the world seemed to still her shock, a silent admission of guilt. Carmen, my mother-in-law, turned next, her brow creasing in confusion. Diego lingered at the edge of their circle, his gaze averted, a coward in the face of truth. I offered no smile, only a nod, and strode past them, my resolve a blade cutting through their pretense. A crew member in a navy blazer stepped forward, her voice clear and resonant. "Welcome aboard, Ms. Isabel, owner of La Sirena." The words echoed across the dock, a declaration that struck like thunder. Adriana's flute trembled, her composure cracking. Whispers rippled through the gathered guests, their eyes darting between us. I met the crew member's gaze and said, "Proceed." She nodded, signaling the captain, and the yacht's engines hummed to life. I moved through the main salon, past vibrant Otomi tapestries and a bar stocked with mezcal, ignoring the floral arrangements screaming Adriana's taste. I settled on the aft deck, the folder in my lap, the ocean stretching endless before me. Dinner was served in the upper salon, candlelight flickering on gold-rimmed plates, the air thick with ceviche and margarita aromas. Adriana presided at the table's center, her laughter forced, her eyes avoiding mine. Diego sat silently, swirling his drink, his refusal to act a wound deeper than Adriana's schemes. Carmen chatted politely, unaware of the storm brewing. I waited, my anger a coiled spring, until dessert, churros dusted with cinnamon, was placed before us. Adriana rose, glass in hand, her voice syrupy with false warmth. "I'm so grateful for this tradition," she began. "It's about family, about protecting what we've built, about those who truly belong." I stood, my chair scraping softly against the teak floor. "I'd like to add to that," I said, my voice steady, slicing through her words. Adriana froze, her glass hovering. I opened my folder, pulling out a printed transcript, its text stark against the white page. "This is from a call last month," I said, "between Adriana and the Salazar's legal advisor." I read aloud, my tone unyielding. "She's not family. She has no right to our legacy." The salon fell silent, forks clattering, breaths held. Adriana's face drained of color, her lips parting in a stammer. I slid a second document onto the table. "And this," I continued, "is the purchase agreement for La Sirena. Sole investor Isabel Morales. Primary owner listed first." Diego's eyes widened, but he said nothing, his silence a betrayal I'd expected. Carmen's hand flew to her chest, her gaze shifting to Adriana. "You did this," she whispered. Adriana's voice broke. "I was safeguarding our name," she stammered. "You thought I'd stay silent," I said, my voice low, laced with fury. "You were wrong." A cousin coughed. Another guest shifted uncomfortably. Carmen tried to speak. "Perhaps we can discuss this privately," she said, her voice faltering. "No," I replied. "This ends here. I've let your slights pile up for years, ignored invitations, stolen credit, whispers meant to wound. No more. I'm not here to beg. I'm here to be seen." Adriana sank into her chair, her defiance crumbling. The guests murmured, their allegiance wavering. I gathered my documents, each movement deliberate, and turned to leave. "You can keep your story." "Adriana," I said, pausing at the doorway, but not at my expense. The ocean's pulse filled the silence as I stepped onto the deck, the night air cool against my skin. My anger wasn't gone, but it had transformed less a fire now, more a beacon. I'd faced them, not as an outsider, but as the woman who'd built this ship. They'd underestimated me, but their illusion lay in ruins. I stood at the railing, the stars above unyielding, and knew this was only the beginning. The sun dipped below the horizon, painting the Puerto Vallarta sky in shades of coral and indigo. It was late on the 3rd day of May, a Friday, hours after my confrontation aboard La Sirena. The yacht's deck hummed with the low thrum of engines, but the air felt heavier, charged with the fallout of truth. I stood alone on the starboard side, the cool teak beneath my bare feet, my navy dress swaying in the evening breeze. The rage that had fueled me during dinner had ebbed, leaving a quiet resolve in its wake. I'd laid bare Adriana's deceit, and now the Salazars were unraveling, their carefully curated facade in tatters. Below, in the lower salon, Adriana sat alone, her silhouette framed by the wide glass panes. A crew member offered her another glass of mezcal, but no one joined her. Her laughter, once the centerpiece of every gathering, was absent, replaced by a stillness that spoke of defeat. The guests who'd once hung on her every word now avoided her, their whispers trailing through the corridors. I felt no triumph, only a hollow ache for the years I'd spent chasing their acceptance. Adriana's isolation was her own making, a consequence she couldn't charm away. As night fell, Carmen found me on the deck, her pearl necklace glinting under the soft lights. Her posture, usually so commanding, seemed diminished, her eyes searching mine. I was blind to her cruelty, she said, her voice low, trembling. I should have seen it sooner. Her admission wasn't an apology, but it carried weight a crack in the Salazar armor. I nodded, my gaze steady, offering no absolution. Her acknowledgement was enough, a shift I hadn't expected but welcomed. Diego approached later, his steps hesitant, his face etched with regret. He stood beside me, hands in his pockets, staring at the dark waves. "I failed you, Isabel," he said, his voice thick. I saw the slights, the exclusions, but I stayed silent, thinking it would keep the peace. His words stirred the anger I'd buried, but they also held a raw honesty I hadn't heard before. "I'm transferring full ownership of La Sirena to you," he added. "It's yours. Always was." I met his eyes, seeing not just guilt, but a man grappling with his own complicity. I didn't forgive him not yet, but I nodded, accepting his gesture as a start. By dawn on Saturday, the 4th day of May, the yacht felt different, its air less stifling. Guests no longer clustered around Adriana. They nodded to me in passing, their glances tinged with respect, not pity. The shift was subtle but undeniable. I sat in the lounge, sipping café de olla. When my phone buzzed, Lucia Navarro had posted an article online, "The Woman They Tried to Erase." My story, told in her piercing prose, had gone viral, shared by women who saw their own struggles in mine. Comments flooded in, strangers praising my courage, others sharing tales of betrayal. The world saw me now, not as the Salazar's guest, but as a woman who'd claimed her truth. I leaned back, the mug warm in my hands, and let the moment settle. The victory wasn't in Adriana's fall or the family's remorse. It was in the peace I'd found, a stillness born from knowing my worth. Yet a pang lingered for the younger Isabel, who'd bent herself to fit their mold, swallowing slights to belong. She'd been exhausted, unseen, and I mourned her quietly. The ocean stretched before me, its rhythm a reminder of resilience. The Salazars were changing, but my journey wasn't theirs to define. I'd faced their lies and emerged whole, ready to build something new on my terms. The morning light streamed through the tall windows of Café des Artistes, bathing the Puerto Vallarta restaurant in a soft, golden glow. It was Sunday, the 2nd day of June, a month after my stand on La Sirena. The air carried the aroma of fresh tortillas and hibiscus tea, mingling with the murmur of quiet conversations. I sat at a round wooden table adorned with a vibrant Otomi runner, surrounded by faces I'd chosen not bound by blood, but by trust. This was my table, built from the ashes of a decade spent seeking approval I never needed. Lucia Navarro arrived first, her journalist's notebook tucked under her arm, a plate of churros in hand. Mateo Rivera followed, his warm smile a contrast to the stern lawyer I'd met weeks ago. Diego entered last, his eyes softer now, carrying a tray of café de olla. We laughed over the clinking of cups, sharing stories of Puerto Vallarta's summer festivals and Lucia's latest exposé. The ease of it struck me how natural it felt to be seen, not as an outsider, but as Isabel, whole and enough. My heart swelled with a quiet pride, a feeling I'd almost forgotten. As we ate, I reached for my bag, my fingers brushing an old envelope tucked among my keys. I pulled it out, curious, and unfolded a note in my father's steady handwriting. Never beg for a seat. Craft your own table. The words hit me like a wave, their wisdom crystallizing a truth I'd only begun to grasp. I had no memory of when he'd given it to me, perhaps slipped into a birthday card, or left after a family dinner where I'd felt invisible. But now, it was a beacon, guiding me to this moment. I passed the note to Lucia, who read it and nodded, her eyes gleaming. "That's you," she said simply, and I smiled, the weight of years lifting. I leaned back, sipping my coffee, the mug's warmth grounding me. The Salazar's legacy no longer defined me. I'd spent 10 years bending to fit their mold, swallowing their slights to belong. But standing on La Sirena, I'd reclaimed my voice, not for their approval, but for my own peace. Adriana's isolation, Carmen's regret, Diego's amends, they were ripples of my truth, but not its core. My victory lay here, in this room, with people who valued me without conditions. I'd built something stronger than their yacht, a life rooted in authenticity. Diego caught my eye, his hand resting near mine. "We're stronger now," he said quietly, his voice carrying a promise. I nodded, not fully forgiving, but open to rebuilding. Our marriage wasn't perfect, but it was ours to shape, free from the Salazar's shadow. I thought of the women who'd read Lucia's article, their comments flooding my inbox with stories of betrayal and resilience. They saw themselves in me, and I in them, a sisterhood forged in courage. I wanted to reach out, to tell them they, too, could build their own table. I stood, raising my glass of hibiscus tea, the ruby liquid catching the light. "To those who felt unseen," I said, my voice steady, "I see you. Have you ever been pushed aside in your own family? Felt your worth questioned by those meant to love you? Share your story below. Drop a 1 if this resonates. Or tell me where you're watching from. Your voice matters. If this moved you, hit subscribe for more stories of strength. And if it didn't, I'd love to hear why. Let's talk." The table erupted in soft cheers, Mateo clapping, Lucia grinning. I sat down, my heart full, the note from my father tucked safely in my bag. The ocean glimmered outside, a mirror to the calm within me. I wasn't chasing legacy anymore, I was living it. This table, this moment, was mine, crafted not from obligation, but from choice. And for the first time in years, I felt not just free, but home. This story of Isabel Morales resonates deeply with the struggles many face in navigating family dynamics and societal expectations. It teaches us that true strength lies not in seeking validation from those who diminish us, but in forging our own path with courage and authenticity. In a world where exclusion can feel like a personal failing, Isabel's journey reminds us to reclaim our worth, to build spaces where we are seen and valued for who we are. Her triumph is a beacon for anyone who's felt sidelined, showing that self-respect and resilience can transform pain into purpose. Embrace your truth, and let it guide you to create your own table, surrounded by those who uplift you. This story is a work of fiction created for educational and entertainment purposes only. It is not intended to attack or defame any individual, family, or organization. Any resemblance to real persons or events is purely coincidental. If this story moved you or sparked a thought, Please let us know by commenting below. Your likes, shares, and subscriptions help us create more stories that inspire and entertain. Don't forget to hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications so you never miss an update. Thank you for watching and being part of our community.